Morning everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to do 4 different water effects using acrylic paint. I'm just going to do them in monochrome just to make things easier for you, and then if you want to, obviously you can try it in colour. I've just done some preparation here. I've got a picture, a very simple picture of Port Lighthouse, which is on the south coast of Wales, just outside Llanelli, and I've sketched it out using a 2B pencil. I'm on acrylic paper here and I've masked out the edges. I've sketched it out and then I've just blocked it in very quickly with some tones of grey. I've left this one clear, as you can see. The others have got the sea painted in. Okay, so all I've got is a small detail brush and what's called a rigger brush. I hope you can see those, and some clean water, and I've got a small palette, old plastic tray that had some flat peaches in it, and I've got some black at one end and some white at the other, and I'm mixing up different shades of grey. Okay, and I've got a rag, well, a bit of tissue somewhere just to wipe my brushes off with. Okay, so the first technique is just a simple glaze, and for this you'll need a slightly larger brush. It's not something that's done very regularly with acrylic, is glazing, but occasionally you do use it. It's a very thin coat of colour. Normally you would have some colour underneath and you would glaze on top of it, but for the simplicity of this exercise we're just going to glaze over. So all I've got is a very pale grey, quite watery. Normally I recommend that you don't put a lot of water into your paint, but for this technique you should. So the colour is going to be sort of this colour, and we're going to use it and spread it. So it's quite thin, as you can see. You can still see the paper through. This is completely dry. I dried it off with a hairdryer, and I'm just going to paint it up to the edge where the land touches the sea, and then we're just going to paint it over. You can see how that effect is created. So we're just literally glazing a very thin coat of paint over the top of our dried picture. Okay, so that's the first technique. That's called glazing. The next technique, I've got the water already painted and dry, and we're just going to use a little bit of white acrylic. I'm just using cheap paint here. Actually no, we need to do the grey first. So we're going to do a mid-tone grey for the land, and all we're going to do is we're just going to paint this on, but we're going to paint it using lines, and we're just going to put a touch in for the land, like so, and then we're going to come down and we're going to use the white, as I said before, for the lighthouse. And again, if you can see how I'm putting the paint on, what you need to do is work in sort of zigzags like this, zigzag shapes. Repeat it if it's not strong enough with some thicker paint like that. Okay, so we've done our white bit, and now we need to do the dark bits of the top of the lighthouse. Now these are a little bit more difficult. So we've got a line going along where the join is, so I'm just going to put it in really thin like that. Another one really thin, but I'm going to put it in broken. Can you see how I'm just touching the paper? Just slightly broken, with a sort of nervous hand like that. So you can do some thick and some thin, but just touch the surface of the paper And again, where you come to a solid form, just zigzag. Okay, so as well as that, what you can do is just put in a few lines across these areas here, and go in slightly lighter with the, so I'm mixing up a really light grey for the zigzags that are over the white area. So just again, make sure you use, you might not see this very well actually, let me just darken it up ever so slightly. Make sure you use a nice thin brush for this, and if you haven't got a thin brush, then cut one of your brushes thinly. I hope you can see that. I know that the white is not very strong, so I'm just going to put another couple of blobs in just to strengthen that white up. So that's what you call a light breeze, and you can quite happily just go in with some lighter grey and put some more lines in that extend from those areas. The theory with ripples is that they should get slightly thicker as they come towards you. So if you press a little bit harder with your brush, and so the lines thicken up a touch. Okay, so that's a light breeze. Now we're going to do a rough one. So with the rough seas, all you need to do really is to make the lines denser. So we're going to use the same grey that I used here, and I'm just going to thicken, and I'm going to move the lines a little bit more, like so. So can you see that the lines are much thicker and have much more movement in them, and that will create the illusion of a rougher sea. Wipe your brush off again, in with the white paint, and again this would be much more dense, thicker paint and much more spread out. Can you see how that is? Okay, so spread the lines out, and then we go in to the darkest tone, and you would have almost no line there. It would be very broken. You might get a little, so the lines would be really broken up like that. Okay, so you would just get an illusion of the reflection. So again, go back in with the darker colour and add some extra lines that come into that area and out of that area to make it rough, and again thicken them up as they come towards you, and even darken them up like so. Can you see how that works? You can put some finer, darker ones in the distance if you wanted to, like that. Okay, so you can see the difference between that one and that one. You can go into much more detail and put many more lines in there, but I just wanted to sort of show you quickly today. This one is a misty one, so this is sort of a misty day. Now you'd have to make your atmosphere different here also. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some water. This is a wet in wet technique. Again, not a technique that's usually used in watercolour, in acrylic, but we're going to use it here today because you can use it. So just wet it, and we're just going to allow the paint to sort of soften with the water. So that's your land. Exactly same colours, just using. Now I'm just going to water down the white a bit because it's a bit thick. So in with the white, And you can see how it's blending into the watery bits. So small brush for the rest of the features. And this will move quite a lot now. Okay, so this is the effect that we want. We want it to blur, but we want it to be sort of recognizable, that it is still the reflection of the lighthouse. So with this, I'm going to just spread it out just a touch, lines out to the side, just to give it a little bit more illusion of. Okay, so that is a misty day, and we're going to put some mist over our landscape, and we're going to create that by putting a very thin glaze, almost the same as what we did here, but above the, just to create that illusion of sort of foggy, misty over the top of the lighthouse also. Okay, so there's 4 different techniques. I'm just going to quickly move that off. If you've got a hairdryer, dry it off before you move it, because otherwise it'll run. And I'm going to show you this, which is a, let me just get this in the picture. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I did this just earlier on. It's just a simple representation again of Port Harbour, with a couple of boats in it, and it's all done in grey using the same paints that I've used here, just really cheap black paint and white paint from Wilko. And I'm just going to put the reflections on, and I'm going to do it as if it's a light breezy day. Okay, so I've got a slightly bigger brush, and I'm just going to go in and I'm going to take some of this dark grey. I'm just going to thicken it up a bit because I want it to be thicker. I don't want it to look like a misty day. So I just need a little bit more grey here. And we're just going to put that along the base of here. So all the way along, like that. I've painted over my mask, but don't worry about that. You can put that back in, and thinner as it goes along. And I'm going to use my smaller brush now just to put in. So that reflection I'm going to leave reasonably crisp in there like that, but I am going to put in some little lines just coming off the edges like that, just to break it up a touch. Okay, then I'm going to go in with the same colour, slightly darker this time, just slightly, and I'm going to paint in the bottom of the boat first, like that. And then as you come away from a reflection, it should get lighter. So if you've got a slightly lighter tone available to you, then go into that tone. And we're just going to put some of those zigzags. Remember zigzags? Like that, lines coming off that boat there. I'm going to do the same thing with this darker, and the same thing with this. Okay, and then again just zigzag those lines. They can go out a little bit further, but if you can, like I said, just lighten that grey up as you come away from your boat. Same here, slightly smaller because it's a smaller boat and it's further away. Okay, and on the buoys as well. So in underneath with your darker paint, and then slightly as you go away. Okay, there we go. So the other thing to do is just to put in some horizontal lines. Now try and keep these as horizontal with your paper as possible, because if you go diagonally it tends to sort of make the painting feel like it's falling off the side of the picture. So keep them really horizontal, but working with that theory of zigzagging, and also thin down the lines as you go further away. So as you get to this point here, they should become almost like just tiny bits, really, like that. Okay, so there's the theory. Oh, actually, I have missed the reflection of the lighthouse. So put that in like that. And we've got a little top bit like that. And then the darker bit for the lines. So again, take your time with this. I'm rushing it so that the film is not too long, but there you go. So again, make sure you have some lines coming off that also, because it won't be, because it is a rough not a rough day, it's a light breeze, so you would have some lines coming off and into that section there. I'm just going to go over the top of my mast where I painted over it, just here, like that. Okay, so a nice simple way of using 4 different techniques to create 4 different kinds of reflections in the sea. Have a go. Obviously you can put clouds in the sky and birds and all that sort of thing. In fact, shall I put a couple of birds? Have a go. Please don't forget to like, put comments, subscribe. There you go. I always work in 3s. So I put 3 birds up there. You can even put some people up there if you wanted. All right, thanks very much for watching. I'm going to try and keep these videos going over the summer, and hopefully we'll be back in the Community Education Centre in September. But I will let you all know about that as soon as I know. Okay, cheerio, stay safe.